Pete Hegseth just cannot catch a break, y'all. I don't know if you heard about this, but the New York Times recently revealed that Hegseth had a second Signal chat that he also used to share sensitive information about a military airstrike in Yemen, only this time it was with his wife and his brother and his lawyer. And sure, that might sound bad, but fortunately for Hegseth, White House Press Secretary Caroline I tip 10% Leavitt is coming to his defense as he goes up against, let me just make sure I have this right, the entire Pentagon.
The president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth, who is doing a phenomenal job leading the Pentagon. And this is what happens when the entire Pentagon is working against you and working against the monumental change that you are trying to implement. Secretary Hegseth was nominated for this position because he is standing up for the war fighter, the men and women in uniform who are putting their lives on the line to protect our country and our homeland. And unfortunately, there have been people at that building who don't like the change the secretary is trying to bring, so they are leaking and they are lying to the mainstream media. We've seen this game played before. The secretary is doing a tremendous job, and the president stands strongly behind him.
You might be wondering why Caroline Leavitt sounds like she's trying to get out of a DUI by yelling at the police officer, but I did some research, and it turns out that, yeah, it's just kind of how she talks all the time, apparently. She's sort of like if the phrase, "First of all, how dare you," suddenly just became a person. And that's what you want out of a press secretary, right? You know, someone who just vehemently hates all questions. Speaking of people who might be bad at their jobs, I don't know how they do performance reviews at the White House, but if you've only been the Secretary of Defense for a few months and already the entire Pentagon hates you, and there's reports that it's in total chaos under your leadership, and even members of your own team are potentially leaking stories about you in an effort to discredit you, would that be like a raise or a promotion? Or like a waffle party, like in Severance. I don't know. I don't know how you guys do things over there.
Well, Kate, sources told us last night that Hegseth set up this Signal chat that included about a dozen people, including his wife, his lawyer, and his brother, early on in his confirmation process as a way to kind of strategize with some of his closest advisors. But he apparently continued to use this particular Signal chat even after he was confirmed as Secretary of Defense. And last month, we are told he did, in fact, share those sensitive details about the military operation against the Houthis in Yemen on that Signal chat that included his wife, lawyer, and brother.
Oh, look at that. The White House went straight from Easter to Groundhog's Day by once again reminding us that these are not the classified chats we are looking for, even though, yes, some of the people might not have had a need to know, and even though the information was originally shared with Hegseth on a system specifically for sensitive and classified information. But what's the big deal? You know, it's not like it's grounds for firing the guy. Come on. You'd have to be some kind of sensationalist mainstream media talking head to think that this or anything like it is even remotely close to grounds for firing. Right?
Apparently, the standard operating procedure inside the Clinton Secretary of State office was to send emails that couldn't otherwise be printed to the maid to print them out of a secure area or from a secure area and then hand them off. Any security professional, military, government, or otherwise, would be fired on the spot for this type of conduct and criminally prosecuted for being so reckless with this kind of information. The fact that she wouldn't be held accountable for this, I think, blows the mind of anyone who's held our nation's secrets dear, who's had a top secret clearance like I have and others, who know that even one hiccup causes a problem, let alone a standard procedure like this.
Okay, fine. So yeah, maybe there's like a tiny itty-bitty modicum of hypocrisy here, okay? But you have to remember it was worse when Hillary Clinton did it, because Hillary Clinton is a woman. And I heard on a podcast that women are too emotional and erratic to be in positions of leadership, okay? That's why we have Pete Hegseth, all right, whose calm, cool, and collected demeanor is nothing if not unwavering.
Down goes Hegseth, Duncan Dad on New Year's Eve.
Gunner got it.
Cool tats, bro. By the way, did you guys know that Pete Hegseth is 44 years old? How stressed are you, Pete? You know you're supposed to smoke the cigarettes, not eat them, right? Anyway, now that we know how the White House feels about their favorite whittle flat boy, let's check in on the Democrats to see if they feel the same way.
I think it shows a guy that's way in over his head in a job that's much too big for him. And you saw the little snippet where he fought or pushed back. Well, he didn't deny that he put his family members on this chat. The notion that this is somehow not classified information, the fact that attack plans were being sent out and around before our pilots had actually bombed the Houthis. I would love to take Pete Hegseth down to the Norfolk Naval Station, which is the home port of the aircraft carrier Truman, from which these strikes were launched, and explain to the family and friends of folks on the Truman how this kind of information getting out wouldn't have put their loved ones in harm's way, because he couldn't.
Senator Warner notes that Hegseth has not denied at all having his family as part of the Signal chat, and does seem to be completely in over his head, which I'm pretty sure makes that footage of him chugging champagne in the dunk tank maybe the last time he wasn't in over his head on something. But at any rate, I don't see Hegseth getting super concerned about what Senator Warner is saying, because Senator Warner doesn't have any military experience. Maybe we could get a Democrat to express concerns who does have military experience, like, I don't know, maybe like an astronaut or something. That'd be cool.
Hey folks, if I had a nickel for every time Pete Hegseth was sharing operational information on separate signal chains, I'd have 2 nickels. And I know that's not a lot, but this is really serious. It's against the rules in the Department of Defense, which he heads. And there needs to be an investigation and accountability for this. We can't have a Secretary of Defense sharing operational information to people he shouldn't. Ultimately, this Secretary of Defense needs to either resign or be fired.
Yeah, I mean, I might have punched up the whole I'd have 2 nickels part of that. But besides that, I agree with everything Senator Kelly is saying, especially in regards to sharing operational information and how it should very often be done with people who are, part of the operation. Also, I heard that Hegseth titled this second Signal chat of his Defense Team Huddle, even though I would have gone with Nightmare Blunt rotation. Team Huddle is admittedly cuter, so it's nice to see that they're having fun with our national security. And not to split hairs here, Hegseth, but I am fairly certain that a team huddle is usually comprised of people on the team. You don't typically see someone just grab their lawyer at the very end, but, you do you, I guess. I think part of the reason the story has gained so much traction is just because it's so predictable. Like, Hegseth has never made a secret over his incredibly far-right Christian nationalist beliefs. So the idea that he would just be giddy about bombing the Houthis is maybe the least surprising thing in the world. In fact, the more I hear about this whole Signalgate story, the more it starts to sound like a nightclub designed by Stefan from SNL. If Stefan from SNL hated himself, it has everything. Gaslighting by the White House, every accusation is a confession, the real problem is the media /DEI/liberals, and milquetoast responses from the Democrats. The reality is that Hegseth is just not a serious person, so it makes total sense that he would be defended by an unserious administration. But I think what's really unsettling for people is when we see our leaders, especially the ones who are in charge of, who we're bombing and where we're sending our own troops, suddenly drop their veneer of professionalism, I know when I go to Disneyland that Mickey Mouse is just a person in a costume, but I still don't want to see that person take off their Mickey Mouse head in the middle of Magic Kingdom. You would think the standards would be even higher at the Department of Defense, but apparently they're not. Apparently, they're actually lower. And if we're upset about that, I guess that's our problem for some reason. Anyway, what do you guys think? I don't think Hegseth will be around for much longer, but I do think that no matter what happens, the Trump administration will tell us that they've done everything absolutely perfectly. And if anybody disagrees, Caroline Leavitt will ask to see their manager. Bye, y'all.